Ordinary people all around Australia are having strange and unexplainable encounters. Join BFM's Cosmic Girl and Sifu each Friday night at 10 p.m. as they explore the fascinating world of paranormal and tales of strange encounters. Extraterrestrials, ghosts, monsters, myths and magic. BFM 10 p.m. Fridays, the heart and soul of the Bay. Oh, and the spirit along the Redlands coast and beyond.
You're on Bay FM 100.3, the heart, soul and spirit of the Bay, and this is Friday night. It's 10 p.m. It's time for a little bit of a local strangeness. And what local strangeness are we going to be talking about tonight, Cosmic Girl?
We are going to be talking about the Djinn.
The Djinn?
Dark side of ufology.
The dark side of ufology.
Yes, because there is a dark side.
So if I put gin and Coke in
No, not that sort of gin.
Would that, like, could I call it gin bean or something like that?
That doesn't, no.
No?
Well, actually, it may have the same effect, but no, that's not what I mean.
Okay, so we're talking about gins.
Yes.
Okay, that's very interesting because that covers a whole lot of stuff, especially when you're looking at what people over the centuries have referred to as being maybe demons or angels or the like. So maybe, just maybe, they come from the same family, Cosmic Girl.
I think it's the epitome of high strangeness. That's what I think it is.
The epitome of high
strangeness. Did you like that? I just sort of threw that in.
And you heard it right here first on Strange Encounters. What else? I hear there's a little bit of a drought going on in terms of UFO sightings in southeast Queensland at the moment, Cosmic Girl.
Yes, it's like that. We haven't had very many reports at all this last week, but I'm sure after people listen to this show, they'll be jumping up and down ready to report their sighting to us.
I think you might be onto something too there, Cosmic Girl, and certainly we'll be telling you a couple of stories, a couple of my stories about a recent road trip down to New South Wales and back. And we saw some fairly interesting things, and particularly a couple of stories around the Glen Innes area. But we've got an exciting, really exciting episode. This gin stuff, the dark side of ufology, that just sounds pretty scary.
It sounds mysterious too, doesn't it? You know, it's... But, yeah, hey, people, tune in.
Tune in.
Hear all about it.
It's all happening right here on Strange Encounters on 100.3 Bay FM.
Friday nights on Bay FM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
We're back with another exciting episode of Strange Encounters on 100.3 Bay FM, the heart, soul and spirit of the Bay. How are you this evening, Cosmic Girl?
I'm great. Actually, that's not quite true. I was a little bit disturbed yesterday.
Just a little bit?
A little bit, because I was reading about the Apophis asteroid was coming very, very close to Earth on the Black Friday the 13th, I think, in April in 2029.
Bummer.
I know. I read it and I went, oh, like it was very close to the Earth.
Really?
Yes. And
really, really close.
Something like 25,000 kilometres or something. It was very close. And I thought, uh-oh, 10 years to go. 10 years to go.
We've got a looming Armageddon episode.
Those aliens better land quick.
Yeah, and save the day.
Yeah.
And speaking of aliens saving the day and landing on the Earth, we've got some dismal news, haven't we, this week? Madam President of UFO Queensland, we have got zilch, zip, nada reports.
Well, not exactly.
Oh, okay.
Not exactly, because on the, as listeners may remember, if you're a regular listener, last week we spoke about a very interesting UFO report from Macleay Island, and I posted that on our UFO Research Queensland Facebook page, and someone responded by posting some footage of a UFO that they saw a couple of months previously.
Wow.
But unfortunately, the footage is of just a white light moving around in the sky, in a black sky. And, it's so important for people when they're filming that they get other things in the frame, something that's stationary, like a light pole or a street light or a roof of a house or something like that, so we can do a comparison of movement and maybe even get an idea of size too.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems there's a bit of activity going on in the Bay Islands.
There is. Well, there has been over the years, on and off, like all UFO activity. There are times when it's prevalent in some areas and not in others, and then it moves around. I think that might depend on perhaps the UFO activity itself and perhaps the time of year, depending on if people are looking up at the sky, if they're outside or not. It's a bit of a transient phenomenon.
Yeah, I guess so. It sort of moves around a lot from what we've experienced over the last few years in reporting this stuff.
Yeah.
So
there are hot spots at times.
Yeah, most definitely. And speaking of hot spots, as you know, I've just returned from a epic road trip.
I know. How was that?
I tell you what, it's going to take me a couple of weeks to recover. I'm already planning my next one, so I just can't help myself. But yeah, we passed through some awesome countryside on the way back, and we stopped a night at Glen Innes. And apparently, you've got some stories you'd like to tell us about Glen Innes.
Well, yes. Am I telling them now?
Well, yes.
I didn't know I was telling them now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, there's some strange stories. There was what we think may have been a Yowie encounter at a place near there. And it was told to us by someone, originally was told to us by someone, briefly told, when we were on a sky watch there up at the Standing Stones on top of the hill, I guess, your mountain. There's not really a mountain, but where the Standing Stones are there. And we met a gentleman who told us about a crop circle that we went out and investigated. And while we were there, he and his son turned up, as well as another colleague. And the son had been involved in some sort of strange experience where he had been out camping northwest of Glen Innes and had with a friend and had seen some sort of being, I guess, off in the bush at a distance with glowing red eyes. And they must have been threatened enough or felt threatened enough that they picked up the rifle and hit off a shot. And anyway, it's unclear as to whether they hit it or not, but when they came back to the camp, because they took off, they got really frightened. And when they came back to the camp was all messed up. It was just chaos. Everything that they'd had, pots with water and food and the tents and everything, all their food, everything was just spread out over the area. And they took off. One of them actually left the area and was never seen from again. He was that frightened by his experience.
Really? So he just legged it and did come back?
Yep, left the area.
Wow.
I mean, not the camping area, the town.
The town?
Yes, left the town.
Jeez,
yes.
Wow, that's a bit extreme.
Yes.
Did they have any evidence of actually hitting the creature? Was any like blood trails or anything like that?
Oh, I don't remember them mentioning anything like that. No, no. This is going back about 4 years.
Okay, so it's not all that long ago.
Not really, no. But there are areas around that, like Woodinbong is another place where they have Yowie sightings as well.
Wow. Now tell me, that part of the world there, another little whisper, what we're talking about, Tyington, Emmaville, that sort of area there, apparently there may be some, I don't know, let's say suspicious facilities out that way? Would you like to comment on that?
Maybe.
Don't get Cosmic Girl into trouble here. I got Barry the Brain over there sitting in the corner shooting daggers at me. He doesn't want the government coming in and kicking his door in.
Well, all I can tell you, and this is really vague, very vague, because I didn't take notes at the time. This is just what someone was telling us when we were in the area, that they had come across this. Well, actually, I think they'd been told about it. I'm not quite sure now, but they'd come to this farm that had an intense amount of security cameras around it. There was a huge sign on the gate which said trespassers will be shot on entry. Well, that's country country
pretty standard.
areas, so that may be standard, yes.
I think the real estate agent actually gives you one of those signs when you buy acreage out that way.
I don't know. Have you got one on your property?
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Mine says imprisoned for an indefinite period of time.
Anyway, there was also, I seem to remember, there was also something he said he saw, some sort of tower on top of a building.
Wow.
And
like a transmission tower?
like a communications tower. I remember that.
That's odd.
Yeah, so it was just out in the middle of nowhere. There didn't seem to be any people around.
I love watching Barry's actually squirming in his easy boy over there. I love it. This is great.
Well, we weren't going to talk about that, but you put me on the spot.
Love it. Well, there's strange encounters.
Yes.
Well, go on, Cosmic Girl. Any other details?
Well, that was it, basically. I don't think there was too much more about that.
Any coming and going at the premises or the building?
No, not that I'm aware of. I think
Vehicles?
he drove out there in the evening, early evening, from memory, and he just thought the whole setup was a bit strange because he was a local. So, you know, he just thought it was a bit quite unusual. Not just a bit unusual, quite unusual.
I wonder what the context is, Cosmic Girl, around him actually being notified of the existence of that place in the first instance.
Look, it could have just been a friend of his mentioned it and said there's something strange out there. I don't know what it's about. I've been out there myself and had a look, and he decided to go and check it out himself.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
There you go.
But anyway, you know, there are strange things in country towns.
I know.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
Welcome back to Strange Encounters on 100.3 Bay FM. I'm sitting in the studio here with Cosmic Girl. We have got a very interesting topic to be canvassing this evening.
The dark side of ufology.
The dark side of ufology.
There is a dark side to it. But what I particularly wanted to talk about for the listeners tonight was about the Djinn and the relationship of those to the alien abduction phenomenon.
Wow.
So I first got interested in the Djinn because of the alien abduction experiences that were being reported to me very heavily through the 1990s. And I wasn't alone in that. Many UFO researchers were getting just countless reports of that.
So, Cosmic Girl, when you're talking about the Djinn, we're talking about like a species or a family, like we're talking Arabian Nights, sort of pre-Islamic.
That's the mythology. Yes, that's
like genies and bottles and stuff.
Yes, exactly. That's the mythology, but there's more to it than that. And the Djinn are thought to be a race of beings that actually were on the planet before humans were. And they sort of had sovereignty over the planet. And apparently the story goes that they got a bit too big for their boots, became arrogant, and they had a falling out, a bit like fallen angels, really, with the spiritual hierarchy. And ever since then, they have been, I guess you'd say, causing havoc for human beings because they want to get revenge, basically. And some of those experiences, when you sit and you read reports of that, they are very, very much like alien abduction experiences.
Right. Okay. So, but my understanding of the Djinn is there's a bit of a positive influence there as well.
There can be, yes. They can.
Isn't that where the word genius comes from?
That is, exactly. They can be malevolent or they can be benevolent. A lot of the reports that we hear about, though, are malevolent reports. And they seem to attach themselves to a family line, and it can exist for a long time. So that particular, I guess you'd say, creating chaos and havoc in a person's life, that can go on for generations.
Wow.
They attach themselves to a particular bloodline.
So that's the whole thing about family curses, for instance.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, exactly. And I was just listening this morning to, I was reading this morning about, in Islamic teachings, there are 3 types of jinn, but there may be even more. But the 3 main types are described as having the ability to fly through the air, so I guess that's where the genie idea comes from, appearing in the form of animals, particularly snakes and dogs, which I find really curious, and also those that can come and go. And these are the types that most want to cause havoc in the lives of humankind. So that to me, and I think we've spoken about this previously, reminds me of the midwayers. They can be both physical and non-physical.
Oh, I see. Yep.
Yes. So it's like there are things that occur that in ancient times they were called jinn. They may have also, the benevolent ones may have been angels, and today we might refer to them as extraterrestrials. So I think it depends on the times that we live in and our understanding as to our perspective of what they might be.
Yeah, same head, different hat.
Exactly, yeah. And it seems to be a really old phenomenon.
Yeah, like this is really, really old stuff. It even goes back into really ancient history, like the Egyptian. Is there some Egyptian history, like in hieroglyphs about them?
There could be. I'm not really sure about that. I do know that they're very powerful in. There is the teaching from the Quran talks about the jinn, wow. And actually, in some cases, some people fall in love with their jinn, and they will undergo a ceremony and marry their jinn.
Marry their jinn.
Can you? I find that really interesting.
Okay.
Whether they're coming or going, I don't know.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
So
love is blind.
But also, you know, like some of them are evil, and I was also reading that in Islamic teachings that some of them stay with people who are considered impure, and I guess that means like have negative thoughts and behaviour. Right?
So what you're saying to me, Cosmic Girl, is I'd have potentially enough to have my own soccer team.
I don't know. Would you?
I don't know.
Are you impure?
Oh well, depends who you ask.
But the other interesting thing I was reading was that Islam teaches that at the base of hellfire, well, doesn't even that term sounds really bizarre, doesn't it? The base of hellfire is the tree of Zakim, and its fruits are like the heads of devils or shayateens, and they're ugly. And I find that really curious because the alien abduction experiences, people report seeing small beings with inverted pear-shaped heads that actually look like unborn fetuses. Ah. And some of those can also be quite tall. So the small ones are called the greys, and when they're tall, they're called tall greys, right? But there's been other types of things that come up in the lives of people who report these alien abduction experiences, like shadow people, or people, you know, dark silhouetted beings who you can't quite make out the form, but some of them wear hats and capes and things like that. Wow. Really strange, yeah.
I actually read a stat somewhere the other day. Global abductions under very suspicious circumstances, previous 20 years, it's around 5-point-something million. And that's a conservative figure. Mm.
Well, during the 1990s...
So that's like New Zealand goes missing. New Zealand goes missing every 20 years.
I must pass that on to the people I know in New Zealand.
Or is that just wishful thinking?
I don't know. Oh, that's not nice.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
But during the 1990s, to back up those stats that you read, just here in Brisbane alone, we were receiving on average 500 reports per year, and topping out one year at 800 reports. Now, out of those, a lot of those were alien abduction experiences. So I think by now, in the last 30 years, I've probably spoken to about 4,000 people who've reported close encounters with other strange things going on.
Wow.
And you know, there was a report published in, I think it was 1991, don't quote me on that date, but it was called the Roper Report. And in that report, they estimated through the through the questionnaire that they circulated, that 2% of the population, of all populations, but in America at that time, were people who'd had close encounters. And if you take 2% of Brisbane population, quick, what is it? What is it?
What would it be? How many people in Barry the Brain? I'm just referring to Barry, a couple mil?
I'll go and count.
So we're probably looking at between 100,000 and 200,000?
A bit more, yeah.
Maybe a bit more?
Yeah. About 200 and something thousand maybe, yeah. Yep. So that's a lot of people in our society. Actually, I think it might even be more, but anyway, don't quote me on that. So, because I think I worked that out on 2 million some years ago.
Okay.
So I think we're close to 3 million in Brisbane
Okay, so
now.
it might be more. So you're looking between 200 and 300,000 people.
Yes. That's a lot
that
of
go
people.
missing under
Yes.
suspicious circumstances. Or you're saying that go missing.
Have missing time experiences in relation to their close encounters.
Right.
And of course, that doesn't account for people who do go missing, and they may be, filed in the police headquarters as, cases of people that we just don't know what happened
But why
to
don't
them.
we hear more about this cosmic girl? These people are going, you're talking alarming numbers here.
Yes, I know.
Why don't we know more about this?
Well, that was the question that researchers were asking during the 1990s.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
So some of these alien abduction experiences could be cases of the jinn, because it's very similar in that they will follow a family line. It can manifest as poltergeist activity. It can manifest as affecting your white goods in the house.
Demonic possession?
Well, yes, possession, those sorts of things. Yeah, creating chaos. But it can also manifest in the world. It can manifest in political arenas. This is what I was listening to Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who is a well-known paranormal investigator and author. She's written about 60 books on the paranormal. But she had a particular interest in the jinn, and she's been studying that phenomenon for about 15 years. And she said that she'd come to the conclusion that they could have some sort of influence in, I guess, the upper echelon, which we may call the Illuminati.
So there's a jinn lobby group.
There could be. In world affairs like military action, political unrest, upheaval in countries, those sorts of wars, all those sorts of things, anything that creates chaos is a way for the jinn to have revenge against humankind.
So they can, assumably then, physically manifest and physically interact with humans.
Yes.
And when they do so, are they then susceptible to the same sort of physical laws as the rest of us? Can they be killed?
I don't know about that, actually. You may have to ask the jinn gears or the jinn masters. I'm not really sure.
There are jinn masters?
Yes, jinn masters, absolutely.
Tell me about... Oh, hang on a second. Oh, the listeners are out there, the strangers are out there going, what's Cosmic Girl all about? So that we've got jinn masters?
Absolutely.
Okay, okay, so backing right up. Beep, 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 beep.
Take your hands away from your face.
It's just like I'm having a face palm over here. Okay, so what is a jinn master? Where are they?
Well, in Iran...
And is there training for that?
In Iran, there are jinn gears or jinn masters, and they have the ability to conjure genies or jinns and have conversations with them to learn information. And the jinn masters say that the people, like we were talking about the Illuminati or various people in power, are making pacts with these jinn.
Okay.
Making deals with them.
Do you think they'd have the ability to conjure Barbara Eden in her prime for me?
Anything's possible.
It was Barbara Eden, wasn't she the original?
I love that show. I love that show. Yes, but didn't she talk about the jinn? Do you remember she talked about the jinn masters?
Wow.
Her master, right? She'd had various masters.
Wow.
Yes, but now, he was her master. But anyway, let's not get sidetracked here, okay?
Because that's the important stuff, right, guys?
Well, I love that song, I have to tell you.
Come on, Barry. Get with it. He's boo, boo.
But I think it's really interesting because while us common folk, like you and I, we are commoners. Sorry, but we are.
I've been called a lot worse, Cosmic Girl. It's okay with me.
People in the street with feet on the ground, we might do things like use Ouija boards or practice magic and maybe investigate that and think it's fun. But there are people higher up in our society, like these Illuminati, who make pacts with the jinn so that they have outcomes that they want. Now that's very interesting, don't you think?
So is there any drum on how they actually conjure up? The jinn masters actually... Has that been passed down? Is it a sacred knowledge, obviously, that's been passed down from members of this elite group to other members of the elite group? And do we have an idea of what that sort of communication system looks like?
I don't understand that, but I do think it's far more than just rubbing a brass lamp.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't know how they're doing it.
No, I don't.
They're
I don't
just doing
understand
it.
that, and I think that's probably in some of the Islamic in the Islamic culture they would have
They would have an idea.
understanding of that.
But it's not just something that is peculiar to Islamic tradition.
No.
My understanding of the jinn is that
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. They were disbanded across the four corners of the globe.
that's
There
right.
was some great war or upheaval between humankind and the jinn, and basically banished.
Well, they basically became quite arrogant in their dealings with humankind, which you might like to say God, but let's just say a spiritual hierarchy was dissatisfied with, and they became like fallen angels, and they were just banished.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're trying to get revenge against humankind for its payback for this spiritual hierarchy.
So, folks, just when you thought Strange Encounters couldn't get any stranger, Cosmic Girl comes up with this. Fascinating stuff. So, in terms of jinn and jinn activity, then, you're talking about abduction experiences. Like, I've read a bit over the years just with regards to abductions of young children, and that being attributed to fae folk and creatures of that variety. Is this the sort of thing that we're talking about?
Yes, because we have this history in folklore of the fae folk. We have the fairies that abducted children and returned them with changelings. So they were the same children, but they looked the same, but they looked a bit sickly. And they weren't quite right. I can't explain that fully, but they just weren't quite the way they were before. So they'd have missing time experiences with that as well. Children would go missing. They might turn up days or even weeks later, but they were not quite the same. And we have this similar sort of thing with being sickly children, right? Afterwards, that we have the same sort of thing in the abduction information, in that a lot of the reports in those days where people thought they were on craft during the abduction experience, they were having situations where they were taken into a room where they were with children who looked quite sickly, and these alien human hybrids were being put to, or attempted to being put to, the women's breasts, so that these aliens seemed to think that doing so, or they had observed human women doing this with their own children, they thought doing that would make their hybrid children well or function properly. Of course it didn't, but I heard a lot of those stories then. Don't hear those stories as much now.
Okay.
It's very strange.
So, how do we combat a jinn? First of all, I guess let's back it up a little bit. How do we identify that we've got some jinn activity taking place? Are there telltale signs of that happening? Maybe in your household or in your family lineage? I know there are probably some strangers out there right now that are thinking, wow, I've heard stories about my family and this really rings true and resonates for me. So can you break the curse? Or can you break that attachment? And then how can you actually banish these things? Can you contain them? Like, there's a lot of legend around. I'm asking a million questions here. My mind's racing. But, we go back to the whole I dream a genie thing with the genie in the bottle. Is there a lot of truth to the ability to be able to contain these entities in bottles or ceramic containers or other such containers?
Well, let me answer your first question.
I think there's about 8 questions there,
I
Barry,
think so. just to make it easy for me.
I asked the 8 questions straight away so I can just sit back and relax for the next half hour, and I'll start sneezing now.
Well, let me tell you some reports that I've received, which people thought were through the alien abduction phenomenon, okay? And one was of a young man who reported having unseen, and who had some sort of close encounter, but afterwards this was followed by unseen entities holding him down on the floor and up against the wall at other times for up to an hour.
Doing what?
Just holding them there forcefully against the wall and on the floor. Another woman described being chased by an amorphous form that seemed to be made up of long threads that had unravelled, like an old audio tape or typing ribbon that had been unravelled. And this amorphous form was following her while she was driving, and she felt malevolent intentions projected towards her from it. Another case was of a young man who had a very good close-up UFO encounter in Norrköping in Sweden, but he also spoke about experiences of shadow people in his life. And he actually, I remember him, he also said that he saw something wispy and brown also leave his father's body at a particular time.
Did I tell you I saw a shadow person recently, Cosmic Girl?
Did you?
Yep, at the Royal Bull's Head Inn at Drayden.
Oh, really?
Yeah, last weekend.
This was a paranormal investigation?
Well, it wasn't. It was just me mucking around the haunted house. But I saw it while a colleague of mine was doing a live.
And what did you see?
I was standing at the end of a hallway at the top of the stairs, and I heard a lot of footsteps. This hallway was just lit up with footsteps. The whole time I was there, I was hearing a different part and banging and knocking on the doors. And right at the other end of the hallway, I saw movement. It was like sort of like I don't know whether we could describe it as a shadow, but it was sort of like an absence of light shape sort of come out. And then I heard the door, so the wall knock at the end, and I saw it disappear back into there. So I bolted down the hallway to investigate it and didn't see anything. Is that what you mean by shadow? Yeah, well... it's the first time I've ever really seen something like that. Yeah, but I heard a lot of stepping and knocking and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, so these are sort of things that can happen that people might go, well, there's some weird stuff's been going on in my family for a long time. And, you know, my mother's had experiences, my grandparents have had experiences, my siblings have had or my aunt has had experiences. And they have spoken about their parents who've had strange experiences, and we seem to come from a line of, mediumship type people, or they're very sensitive types, you know, and I mean psychically sensitive. So, but yeah, there are strange things that go on, like some of these things that I've described. There was also a woman on the Gold Coast who spoke about beings who floated across her backyard and over the fence, and they were dark, shadowy and wispy, and they seemed to have no physical bodies because of their actions, yet they appeared humanoid to her. So she couldn't see faces or anything like that, but she could see the humanoid shape.
Whereabouts was this?
This was down at the Gold Coast, actually at a place called Studio Village. I don't know if it's still called that, but north of Southport, or north of Helensvale, I think it is. Yeah. No. So strange experiences. Yes, it could be a jinn that's attached itself to your family line. How do you deal with it? I think that you can. There are people like psychic mediums who will go and do house clearings or things like that. I guess in a way similar to exorcisms, perhaps.
So they're dealt with the same way.
But, well, I don't know exactly, because it depends on the situation, how long it's been with people, how strong the energy of it is, and you may need a particular person like a jinn gear or a jinn master to actually make a deal on your behalf for this thing to go away, to finish its contract with that family.
Oh, so if you're a jinn gear or a jinn master who resides in the greater Brisbane, southeast Queensland area, can you please contact Strange Encounters Radio Show 38210022 or jump on Strange Encounters Down Under Facebook page and PM us your details. We'd love to have you on the show and discuss your craft.
In regard to positive jinn experiences, if we could call it that, I actually don't have any reports from people about that, because what I think is it's when people can't cope with what's going on, that's when they contact people like me, researchers and investigators like myself. So, and in all fairness, I think in our society, people might interpret them as angels, angelic experiences.
Oh, yes.
They may have visions of these beings and think, oh, that's my guardian angel or something like that. I think that's a big possibility. And I've often wondered, even with the alien abduction experiences, how many of those we don't hear about because people think they're demonic, so they turn to the churches to go and to get exorcised, and then we never hear from them. You know, so it's really hard to know exactly what's going on.
Have you ever had any success in contacting an exorcist from the church?
No, I haven't, but will you do it for us?
I've tried.
Oh, they don't want to speak? No.
Absolutely. It's like it's crickets contacting them. And believe me, we tried.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
For the strangers that are out there, Cosmic Girl, who may have their very, very own strange stories to share with the rest of us, how are they going to contact us?
Well, they can contact me through UFO Research Queensland, which is 33761780, or they can contact
Strange Encounters Down Under page and shoot us a PM there, and we'd love to hear from you. Actually, we've had a few posts this week where people have commented and just briefly outlined some of the strange encounters that they've had, so we'll be chasing that up and contacting those guys and girls in due course as well. And they can also contact Bay FM on 38210022 during office hours and ask to be put in contact with Cosmic Girl or Sifu, and we will most definitely get back to them, especially if your story pertains to the Redland Coast area. We'd love to get some local strangeness on the program.
I know that there are a lot of UFO reports have come from there in the past.
Yep.
If people would love to, I would love to hear about those reports from the people down there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've just got pointed at what have you got to talk about?
And the helicopter story.
We didn't tell the helicopter story. We have to travel back in time and I'll have to capture the helicopter story.
Yes.
The helicopter story actually took place down in the western suburbs of Sydney when I was actually staying and doing a sky watch with a gentleman by the name of Damien John Knott, who is essentially, I'd love to say, Australia's UFO magnet. He's very humble though, isn't he? He's such a lovely, lovely guy.
Yes. Yeah,
I heard a story about Damo. I'm not sure whether it's confirmed or not, but if it's true, it's just a testament to the character of this bloke. I heard a story that he was actually contacted by a young person, and he's very passionate about educating young people in Skywatch, by the way. Contacted by a young person who was just getting into sky watching and a bit of advice on what he needed to do, but didn't have really any money to get a first camera, and Damo just sent him one of his gazillion cameras for free.
Isn't that lovely?
It just goes to show you, I think that's a really, really, really decent thing.
Yes, he is a good guy.
I'm starting to tear up.
I'll get the hanky out.
I do have a heart after all. It's only very small, but it's in there
Oh,
somewhere.
God. Pools of water around his feet? No. Yeah, you didn't talk about the helicopters going around with your road trip.
Oh, right, so the road trip. So what I actually did was over the weekend, I went down to New South Wales. We did a few things. We actually stopped at Drayton for a few hours while a colleague of mine did a live for her paranormal page at Paranormal Adventures from Mia. Mia did her own live there, and while she was doing her live at the Royal Bull's Head Inn, Sifu, being Sifu, decided to go and be a menace and play around in the building by himself. So I actually observed a few very interesting bits and pieces there while I was there, but I won't go into that. One of the places that we actually stopped at was we did an overnighter at Damien John Knott's house over in the western suburbs of Sydney. Now, this guy, he's a lovely man. He's well known as being a bit of a UFO magnet. But do you think he attracted something a little bit different on this occasion?
When you say different, what do you mean?
Well, what happened was, as you know, I actually managed to do a live.
That's a Facebook Live, folks.
A Facebook Live. I managed to take
That's not live worms on a fishing line or anything.
No, I managed to do a Facebook Live, and we're doing it in Damo's office. So we've just done a big social media presentation, and then we've gone outside to continue on with the sky watching, and a chopper appears, and it circles, and it circles, and it circles, and it circles, and it circles some more. And we used one of the app identifiers in terms of having a look at flight paths and what's flying in the area, and it came up as a police chopper, but it was very, very unusual, very highly suspicious as to what it was doing.
And why was it suspicious?
Just the amount of rotations and tight rotations over, or circles over the area that we found ourselves in. It just didn't seem right to me, like it was dozens.
Did it have like a searchlight or anything?
No.
Nothing like that?
No searchlights. In fact, the navigation lights changed.
To what?
As well. Well, they were white and then they changed. I think there was red and green from memory as well, but there weren't the same sort of navigational lights on the craft all the time. I don't know much about aviation or anything like that. I don't know whether that's the norm, but it just seemed really, really strange that after Damo and I did this live on social media for Strange Encounters, and Damien has had quite a checkered history with, in air quotes, the Men in Black, as we know from Dunny Doo days.
Yes.
So, I don't know, coincidence maybe? And I actually picked the brain, and the quite enormous brain, ladies and gentlemen, of Barry the Brain Taylor with regards to this. And Barry was telling us, what sort of height do you reckon it was flying at, Baz?
Under 1,000 feet.
Under 1,000 feet, folks. And did you find anything unusual about it?
Concentrated on a very small area.
Concentration on a very small area, folks. Yep.
Where Damien lives.
Where Damien lives.
Well,
I guess that's pretty much sums it up, because we actually got the app out and had a look at the pattern, and there wasn't really any rhyme or reason to it, except for the fact that they were very tight.
Yes, and
circles
there
at
was
low altitude.
no sort of pattern to this helicopter's travel, which you might expect if they're searching for something.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced, but it is very highly suspicious.
Yeah, it is.
I would say. So there you go.
So that happens.
It does happen. So maybe after this Friday's episode of Strange Encounters, we might expect a chopper visit.
Oh. Really?
You sound very excited by that, Cosmic Girl. And we won't go down that. We won't go down that path at all, folks.
Dear.
We'll be back soon for more strangeness on 100.3 Bay FM, the heart, soul, and spirit of the Bay. So time does fly, especially when missing time's factored into the equation. Cosmic Girl, would you agree?
I agree. Whatever you said.
Whatever I said.
I'm ditto.
Ditto. And we've come to the end of another program. But what are we doing next week?
Well, we're talking to some paranormal investigators.
I think that would be a really good idea. There's a couple of mates of mine that operate out in the area southeast Queensland. We might get them on the program. Especially, there's a couple of guys out there from Southeast Paranormal who operate out at Drayton, who operate out at Laidley as well.
And what have they been looking into?
Ghosts. Duh.
Ghosts.
Ghosts. Come on. Get
Well,
the
that's
program.
so much more to the paranormal than just ghosts.
There's a couple of these guys, Bruce and Tina. They have got a bit of a fetish. And their fetish is everything a Ouija board.
Oh, really?
Really? So I was thinking, Cosmic Girl, that it would be really cool to get those guys on the show and pick their brain about Ouija boards.
That sounds great.
You excited?
I think that's...
You looked over at Barry the Brain. I think Barry the Brain... That's the most excited I've seen him in quite a long time. He's actually got a smile on his face, folks.
You didn't see my left eyebrow being raised when I looked at him.
I was like, there you go. I won't go down that track. So I reckon it'd be a good idea to get the crew from Southeast Paranormal on the program.
Well, I know there's also a crew down in Newcastle called Oz Paratech.
Oh, yes.
Yes, who and Anne, who runs with her husband Roman, I had to think of his name. She collects Ouija boards.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
That's an interesting collectible pastime, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I just usually collect speeding tickets, but
No.
to each his own.
No. And more.
And more.
Hats, glasses.
Don't tell them that.
Don't tell what?
What, my collections. Are you
What?
talking about my collections or their collections?
Whose collections are we talking about?
I love it when she plays
Dumb.
silly. That's great. Thanks very much, folks. Tune in next week. Oh, guys, don't forget to keep your ears out and your eyes out, I guess, for the first of our Strange Encounters podcasts, which will be
on the Strange Encounters YouTube channel.
Oh my God!
If you missed it,
we have got a YouTube channel, Cosmic Girl.
Yes, we do. And if you missed that, if you missed the shows, there'll be podcasts up there.
There will be, and we've got our very, very first one up and ready to rock right now. So you'll be able to jump on there and listen to your heart's content.
Isn't that great?
It's
I love
very
that.
exciting. It's very, very exciting. So we can spread
I like replays.
That's exactly right. But we can spread our strangeness everywhere.
Strange Nation.
Strange Nation.
What's that song? Strange days indeed.
Yeah, most peculiar, Mama.
Yeah.
All right.
Friday nights on Bay FM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.